Hello everyone and welcome. Today we'll talk about many-to-many relations unidirectional, and we'll be doing all the CRUD operations: create, read, update and delete along with it. Now let us start by modeling the entities. Here we are having the user entity and the role entity, and you have the primary key ID, first name, last name, mobile, email and roles which is defined here. When you come to roles, you don't see the definition of user here. That's the reason why we call it as unidirectional relations. Now let us see how the tables are created. You can see the role table with no description, with no definition of the user. And here, you don't find any definition here, but we have a mapping table where we are having user underscore ID and roles underscore ID which are mapped. Now if you see here, we have the role entity with no definition, and the user entity will be defining it as private, a list of roles of type role. Now we can navigate from the user entity. Let us go to coding. Let us see how we are defining the role entity. Here we have at entity, table name we are given, public class role with primary key ID. It will be annotated with ID, and we have a generated value where strategy equal to generation type dot identity and name and description. Let us see it in IntelliJ. Now let us open the role service. Here I am having the same thing. The entity, table name, description and all the getters and setters are there. We have been doing this before, so I am not going into the depth of it. Now coming to the user entity. Here the same thing, we are defining all the fields, and when it comes to the roles, I am having a definition like private list of roles of type role, and here we are annotating it with many-to-many, where target entity equal to role.class and cascade type I am giving it as all. Let us take it up here. We have done the same thing at many-to-many, target entity role.class and cascade equal to cascade type dot all, and here the email we are marking it as unique, and we are following strategy equal to generation type dot identity. Now by default we can see how the tables are created by Hibernate. We are having the role tables as expected, the same thing with user, and when it comes to t underscore user underscore roles, this is the mapping table created by Hibernate. And when it comes to t underscore user underscore roles, you are having the mapping table where you can see the user underscore ID, which refers to the ID here, and roles underscore ID, which refers to the ID in the roles table. Roles table over here, and the user is referring to the primary key in the user table. Now we are having a create user method which we are defining in the service class. I'll just go through it and then we'll open IntelliJ. I'm creating a new user, assigning it to user. Then I'm checking whether the email, I'm using the find by email method to check whether the email is present. I'm getting the email from the model of type user. If it is present, I'll be returning the email is already present, fail to create new user, because we are defining the email as an unique constraint. Else we are going to run this code. Here we are setting the first name, last name, mobile, email and roles, which is a list of roles, to the new user which we have created. I am getting it from the model which is of type user, and finally we are saving it. Then I am cross-checking if the user repository dot find by ID, if it is present, it is created successfully, else we are failing to create it. So we'll be returning a message, fail creating user as specified. I'll open IntelliJ. Here you can see the service class. It is in the package service with two classes like role service and user service. We are talking about user service right now. We are defining the user repository and the role repository. We are using constructor based dependency injection. We are not using the auto-void keyword. If you use auto-void keyword in IntelliJ, you are going to get squigglies. So let us go with the constructor based injection. Now we are having the create user method, which we are seeing how it is working. And now let us come back to the slides. Now we are defining another method which updates the user. I am marking it with a transactional annotation so that if anything happens between, the entire transaction is rolled back. So what I do is, here you are getting user of type user and the long ID, and I am checking here whether the ID is present. If it is not present, I am returning cannot find the user specified, because we have to update a user which is already present there. And if it is not present, I am going to return cannot find the user specified. Now if it is present, I am going to execute this code. So what we do is, we will be getting the user from the database. We will be using user repository.findById, which takes an ID value and returns an optional user, and I am using the get method to return the user which I am assigning it to new user. Writing a for loop, and here what I do is, I am getting the role and checking if it is present over there. If it is present, I am going to delete it, and I am making sure with this piece of code that it is not it is completely deleted from the database. And if it is not deleted, I will be returning fail to update user. The entire transaction breaks here and it goes back. Else if it is deleted, now it comes here. It will set the first name, last name, mobile, email and roles, and finally I am saving it. After saving, I am checking if it is present. If it is present, I am going to return user updated successfully. Else I am going to return failed updating the user specified. Here you can do finer things, like you can check whether it has changed. I am not putting it here. Now let me open IntelliJ and show you the code over there. We have written the same code. Now let us go and check for the delete user. Fairly straightforward. You are using the find by ID to check whether it is present. If it is present, you are going to delete it. The same code you have written over there. And again, we will cross check whether it is present. If it is present, we are returning fail to delete, because our intention was to delete the user. And if it is not present, we will be returning successfully deleted the specified user. And the final return statement will be for this if statement. If user repository.findById is present, we are executing this piece of code till here. Else I am going to return cannot find the user specified. We will see the code in IntelliJ. So everything is as explained. So we are completing the user service with the three methods: delete user, update user, and create user. Now we are left with the read operation, which we will be doing directly in the controller itself. I didn't write a method for it. It's a good practice that if you can write a method. Now coming to the user controller, we are calling the create user method here. So you can find the URI here, user create, and we are passing in the user in the body. I'm taking it with the annotation at request body. Here I am passing the ID as a path variable. It will be defined in the flower bracket like this. Here we'll be using a get mapping, and then if it is present, we'll be checking if it is present. If it is present, we are going to return the user. So this is the read statement. What we have done, we have not written any method in the service class, but in the controller we are returning it directly from the controller. If it is present, you are going to return the user. Else we are going to return null. And another get mapping where I am getting all the users present. I'll be using the find all method, which will return a list of users. And now coming a put mapping where we are updating the user. We can see we are sending in the ID in the URI, and then we are using the request body to get the body where we are sending, and we'll be using the request body to get the user, and I'm calling the update user method in the service class. And talking of the delete mapping, here all I have to do is I'll be sending in the ID and I'll call the delete user method, which we have defined in the service class. These are the two methods that we are defining in the controller, the read methods to get all and to get by ID. Now talking of the role entity, we are doing all the CRUD operation with the role entity also. So we'll talk of the role entity where we are having add role method. Here what we do is we'll create a new role. I'm using the get name to assign the name to the new role. Same with description, and finally I'm saving it. Quite straightforward one. And I am checking whether it is present. If it is present, you can always return successfully created role. Else we are returning failed to create specified role. I'll go through all the methods here in the service class and then get to IntelliJ. And we have the DeleteRole method, which takes an ID of type long. And now what I do is I'll check whether it is present. If it is not present, I'm going to return no records found. And if it is present, I'm going to execute this piece of code. If it is present, I am going to delete it. And then I am cross-checking if it is still present. If it is still present, obviously it has not been deleted. So I have to return fail to delete the specified record. Else, I'll be returning successfully deleted specified record. Now we have the UpdateRole method. It takes an ID of type long and role of type role. Firstly, what we do is we'll check if it is present. If it is not present, I am going to return specified role not found. And if it is present, I am going to execute this piece of code. Here, I'll be using role repository.findById.get to assign the role to new role. I'll set the name and description. I'll get it from the role here. So new role will be having all the names and description what we have to update. And I'll be using the role repository.save to save the role, which will be in the saved role, which will be assigned to saved role. The .save methods return a role, which I'm going to save it to saved role. And then what I do is I cross check if it is present. If it is present, I'm going to return role is saved successfully. Else, I'm going to return fail to update role. So we'll see all the three methods in our role service. I'll open IntelliJ. We are annotating it with @service. Please do not forget that. Here I'm defining the role repository. I'm not using the auto-void keyword. We are using constructor-based dependency injection. And we are having the add-role method, DeleteRole method, and UpdateRole method, which we have discussed now. And now the role controller, we are having a post mapping, a create role method, which takes in role of type role. It comes in the body. So I'll be calling the add role method in the role service, which I define in the role service. Then delete mapping, where you're using the path variable. You are sending the ID here, and I'll be calling the delete role method and passing the ID which we are receiving here. And now the get mapping, I'll be checking if it is present. I'll be returning the role. Else I'll be returning null. Same with the user. And if I have to get all the roles present, I'll be using role repository.findAll method, which returns a list of roles. And finally, the put mapping, which refers to update one. We'll be sending an ID and a role in the body. I'll be calling the UpdateRole method, which we have defined the role service with ID and role. That's for the role controller. Now, what we do is we'll go to IntelliJ and we'll run the program and see what is happening. Here we can see the role controller defined, user controller, always annotated, and the role repository and the user repository. Define two finder methods, find by email in the user repository and role repository where find by name. Somehow I am not using the find by name method. Now if you look at the application.properties, we are using DDL auto equal to create. That's the reason why Hibernate is creating the tables for you. Show SQL equal to true I have given, so I can see all the database SQL queries that are fired in. Now let us run the application, open Postman and run the request. And play this. Now this is the create method that we are calling. This is the post method that we are using here. In the body, you can see I already defined first name hello, last name world, and mobile number, email. And see here, we have to send in an array of roles where you can see the definition. I am using the square brackets here. So if I want to send one more role, I'll put a comma. Again, the flower brackets, name and description. That's how I'll just show you. So this is how we are going to define. If the user has two roles, we are going to define it this way. I am deleting it, remove the comma, else you are going to see this error here. And now let us send in the request. User created successfully. We'll open the database and see how the user is created. We have the three tables, t_role, t_user, and t_user_role. We are sending in the administrator, it is ID 1, so it is created well. Now the T underscore user. Here again we are having the user created with ID equal to 1. Now let us see the mapping table. It should be 1 1. User ID and role ID, you can see it is 1 1. Now let us run few more requests, the update operation, delete operation and everything, and see how it is going to affect the database. Now what I am doing here is I am sending in the user ID as 1, and I want to get the user associated with the ID 1. It is giving it correctly. Here I want to get all the users present. I am having only 1, so it should give me 1 user. You are getting it correctly. Now what I do is I will be using the put mapping to update the user 1. Now let us check the body. I change the first name from hello to hello good evening, and here administrator I changed it from admin to user, and description also I changed it to standard user. You can see this. Now let us send the request. User updated successfully. Let us go and check the database. So it is updated. Here you should see hello good evening. User role you should see 1 and 2, because here what is happening is the previous one is deleted and a new role is created. So the ID is 2, the mapping should be 1 and 2. User ID 1 and role ID will be 2. So it is updated very well. Now let us see the role entity. Here I am having the body. I am creating a new role of type with name manager, description, mid-level managers, and I am sending it. It should be created. So we are getting a message, successfully created role. I can use the get method. Here we don't have the ID 1, so we'll have to send an ID 2, and we have the ID 3. We have the get all method where we can get 2 and 3, both are showing here. So that's all about the demonstration. Now the major takeaways are we have talked about the many-to-many unidirectional relation. We have seen all the CRUD operations with the user and the role entity. I have taken just 2 entities, user and role, and I am showing a unidirectional relation. And now I am using both same entities for writing the code for bidirectional relations also. And I will be coming out with a proper video of where we will be modeling the entities organization, user and role, which will be a production grade coding, and you can see that. I am linking the source code in the GitHub repository. In the next video, we will be discussing the bidirectional relation. Thanks for watching the video.